Hi everyone, it's Mariah Rossel with A Journey of Beauty. Today I wanted to talk about the idea of the victim and escaping victim consciousness. So I have other videos and blog entries where I talk about one of my absolute favorite models, the drama triangle. Some people will call it the dreaded drama triangle or Cartman's triangle. And this is a very, very powerful model. And you can watch those other videos to learn about it. But one of the things that I personally have had a lot of personal experience with and professional experience with is working with people who have had traumatic experiences. And the term victim is often thrown about. And a lot of people don't like this word. There's a lot of charge, a lot of trigger, a lot of energy to the word victim. And I try my best not to use the word victim to people who have had experienced trauma in their life. If they choose to use it, then I like to use the naming conventions that people use to name themselves. And at the same time, even if a client comes to me who has used the word victim a lot, I do my best to guide them in a different direction. I think that it's important that we can discuss trauma. We can frankly have a conversation about painful things in life. I think these are all very important things. And my personal healing philosophy is that I like to do more trauma-informed therapy than trauma therapy. Trauma-informed therapy, we can talk about the trauma, but it's not so much going into this is the story that happened, and it's usually nice and beneficial to tell that story. This isn't to discount that story, but this is about how does the trauma impact you right now? How in the here and now does that trauma impact your beliefs, your choices, your actions? And then we can look at, okay, so how does that impact it? Is it true? Can it be changed? And then a lot of what I really like to do with clients is help them, one, get present with the moment, and then two, how do you make different choices now? You know, maybe you were in an abusive relationship and you came to the belief that no one will ever love you, or no one will ever love you as much as that abusive partner did, or that person that broke your heart. Or maybe you come to this belief that because you experienced sexual assault that everybody will think that you're used or dirty or not worthy. Or maybe you thought because of that, people will think that you make bad decisions. Or maybe you've stopped loving yourself because of that. You know, there's a whole host of traumas that you could have had and beliefs that have arisen from that. But now, how are you using the stories of the past to harm the present moment? And so, again, it's important to acknowledge these realities of the past and not dwell there. Because when we dwell there, we say, I am a victim. Because this terrible thing happened, this is who I am. And we give power to our abusers. And I can't tell you how many people I've had the experience of knowing where I wouldn't say this exactly in these words, but you're 46 and this terrible thing happened when you're 8 and you're still playing the 8-year-old victim. That is huge. There comes a point when we have to look at the pain and the trauma that we've experienced and say, I have a choice. Do I want to spend the rest of my life saying that because of that terrible thing that happened, I am going to be unhappy, I'm going to be depressed, I'm going to have addiction problems, I'm not going to love myself, I'm going to have unfulfilling relationships, whatever it is? Or am I going to say, I am not what happened to me, but I am what I choose to be. I am how I choose to act and respond to every experience I've ever had. When we can come from that responsibility, when we can come and say, I am living this life because I choose to live this life. I'm living this life in the way that brings me the greatest joy. That's when the changes can be made. And if you have trauma, or you've ever met someone who's had a traumatic experience, one of the things that you'll notice is the trauma never really goes away. You know, maybe there are fewer nightmares. Maybe the explosions and fireworks startle people less. And so there can be this residual of the trauma that will always be there. And that's a reality. However, the question that I like to ask my clients is, how do you accept that reality, honor it for where it is, and take what steps you can in this moment to make this moment's all you have. Make this moment right here the best that you can. What is the highest frequency emotion you can reach right now? Is there a behavior that you can do right now to make things as close to your dream as possible? And then in a few moments, things are different. Now, what's the next highest available frequency emotion to you? What actions and choices are available to you right now? And sometimes the choices are terrible and awful. You know, sometimes they're not great choices, but there's always a choice. And that's what I really like to do, especially when people have had traumatic experiences, is so often our choice was taken away. Our freedom was taken away. Our ability to be autonomous was taken away. And so the first step in healing is reminding yourself or having someone else remind you that you have a choice. What is the choice? Again, it might not be great choices, but there's a choice. And then as you can slowly make small choices, you can become more comfortable in this, and then you can make bigger choices and bigger choices, bigger choices. And it's all these tiny steps. And it's about being patient. And it's about, how are you choosing to identify? Are you identifying as someone who is going to fearlessly walk into the dark night of the soul and do the work and come out on the other side? Are you going to identify as someone who continues to live as a victim? Are you going to identify with your story and shame? Are you going to identify as a survivor? Are you going to say, I don't want to identify by any of these, but maybe you identify as a teacher or a lawyer or somebody who sells sunglasses, whatever it is that you identify as. So what is the identity that you want to have, and what is the identity that you want to create? And so often, especially when we share our stories of our traumas that have happened, we identify as our stories. Oh, you were that person that had that terrible thing happen to you. And it's reinforced. If you were a victim of a crime, you probably had the victim's advocate say, well, you were a victim. Maybe you had your therapist or your mom or your best friend reinforce that. And this isn't to say that you had complete control, and this is not to blame you and say this was your fault. But it is to say, how have you chosen, how do you continue to choose to identify? And that identification can change, because often in the instant, you were victimized. It's logical, it's normal to identify as a victim. Very few people can have a traumatic experience happen and immediately be like, oh, I'm a survivor. Or, oh, this is something else that I identify as. And when we have time, that's the beauty about time. Time heals all wounds, right? I don't know about all wounds, but time lessens wounds, right? And so when we have time to separate between the trauma and now, we can say, okay, well, I was victimized. I had this terrible thing that happened. And now, how I choose to identify is as a survivor. I've heard the word thriver. Like I said, you can identify however you want. But the biggest thing for me is, how do we get out of that victim state and take responsibility for our actions and what we're doing moving forward? Maybe in that moment, likely in that moment, there wasn't a lot of responsibility. We can look at it on some unconscious levels as to, why were you even attracted to that situation in the first place? And for many situations, we can make some sense of that. Some situations we can't. I don't want to say we will for everyone. But the big thing for me is getting present and knowing that you have a choice. And now that you know that you have a choice to identify how you want to identify and to act how you want to act and create the world that you want to create, now you are no longer being held hostage to that traumatic experience that you once had. So take some time and just really think this over and find how you can get really present with exactly what's going on right now, because all you can do is take a day at a time. And then ask yourself, what choices do I have? How am I actively making choices? And how am I choosing to identify myself? Because no matter what happened in the past, how I choose to identify myself now is an ongoing choice, and I can make that choice to be different in every moment, so that way my identity matches the energetic frequency of my heart field and who I really want to step forward as in my life. So thank you so much, and have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.